Hello and welcome back to the another episode of Daily Quiz for IAS Prelims 2025. It is 29th August today and we are going to discuss these important articles which are on this slide which were actually in the newspaper. You know, before we start our discussion, I would like to introduce this channel to you guys. I would like to introduce this initiative to you guys. In this video, as the name suggests, it says we discuss the daily quiz. This quiz is about three different types of questions. We take three different sets of questions in this video. The first set is related to the current affairs which are in the news. We take up the most important articles from the newspaper. We take up only those articles which are relevant for your preparation so that it will help you connect with your current affairs preparation and also help you how to derive the questions from the current affairs which can help which can boost your confidence, which can which can improve your preparation to the best level. So we take up the first set of questions are related to the current affairs. The second set of questions which we take up here, which we discuss here, are related to the static portion, to the static topics. As I had promised you, every day we will discuss some static topic here, and we had started with the Indian polity. And for your information, we are discussing the topics from the book which is named as the Lakshmikant. We are discussing all the topics from that book so that it will help you revise your static portion also. And if you had not read that book, it will definitely give you the idea what is in that book. So we take up the important topic from that book and discuss it here. Today we had to discuss the Indian Councils Act of 1861. After that, we will discuss few previous year questions here. As we every day do, we take up previous year questions from previous year papers. We discuss them here. We had already completed the ancient India portion. We had completed the medieval India portion. And right now we are discussing the questions with respect to the modern India. So without any delay, let's start our discussion. Before we start our discussion, in fact, I would like to request you guys few things here. First thing, which is most important for you guys, please open your notebook and start writing these questions. You don't have the idea how much important these questions are for you. Irrespective of whether the UPSC is going to ask you such questions or not, but it will definitely help you. How it will help you? First, it will help you connect with your current affairs. When you will have your own question bank, when you will start revising those questions which I frame here, it will definitely help you connect to the current affairs which we had discussed. Second thing, it will boost your confidence. When you had it is said that you should at least practice 10,000 questions before your prelims exam. And if you have your own questions, it will definitely boost your confidence while entering into the examination hall. And also, who knows, maybe many questions would be asked from these topics which we discuss here. Maybe many questions would be very much close to the questions which we discuss here. So don't miss this chance. Please write these questions please note these questions anywhere, or at least take the screenshots of these questions. After that, I would like to request you guys, please do subscribe the channel. It takes lot of time to make these videos. It takes lot of research. So when you subscribe, when you share it with your friends, it definitely boosts our confidence. Please do share and subscribe the channel. And also, don't look at the way I introduce it. Sometimes we fumble, but trust me, the information given there would be mind-blowing. It will definitely help you in your preparation. So please stay with me till the end of the video. And one more information I would like to share it here. The cause of this video is not to discuss the current affairs. So I want to make it clear here. We are not going to discuss the current affairs word by word here. We are just going to track the context. Here the motive is to discuss the questions, not the current affairs, but we are including the current affairs also, so that it will help you to derive the context. What is the context behind the questions? If I don't discuss every point here, so please don't blame me that I am not discussing every point here, but I try my level best to include all the important points which are very much relevant for you. And one more thing, let's start our discussion now. Before we start our discussion, let's have a look a small look at the articles which we have to discuss today. The first one, a silent democratic backlash in South Asia. We'll discuss the concept of democracy, how it has evolved with respect to the South Asia, especially Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. After that, we will see India's role in war and peace, especially with Ukraine and Russia. After that, we will discuss about the TB cases in India. What is the main cause of that? What is drug-resistant TB? And we will discuss a little bit about it and frame questions from them. After that, we will have a little look at the establishing a carbon market. We will discuss it with respect to the Kyoto Protocol, and we will frame some questions from this. And after that, we will have a little look on the India and Russia as they sign a working plan to handle the natural emergencies. We'll discuss about it, a little bit about it, and frame a question from this. And after that, as we had discussed Chandipora virus many times before, also we'll derive some questions from this article too. After that, we will discuss some insights about the Great Nicobar project. We will discuss about it and frame questions which are very much relevant to this topic. And finally, we will discuss the static portion topic, which is Indian Councils Act of 1861. We will see its significance, and we will see how it is important for your UPSC preparation. And finally, we will derive some previous year questions here. We will try to find out the methods, the ways by which we can solve them, and we will try to discuss how this information can help you in clearing your next prelims. So with this, let's move to our first topic, which is a silent democratic backlash in South Asia. Here, I had just given a few points here because the motive is not to discuss the news itself, but I will give you the idea what was in the newspaper. Since the independence of India and Pakistan, actually, if we will try to understand the condition in India and Pakistan, before the independence, it was same because we were one country. We had the colonial legacy with us. We were almost same. Our ethnicities are almost same. Our color is almost same. But here is the question: what made India so special, and what were the conditions which led to the destruction of Pakistan? And what are the democratic tendencies arising in there, and what are the democratic tendencies arising in India and other countries? And we will also have some, when we will discuss Pakistan and India, then definitely Bangladesh will definitely come into our discussion. If we look at the Indian democratic way, when India became the independence, the control was always in the civilian hands. The control was always in the civilian government hands. There was always control. It is the civilian government which has controlled the economy of the country, which has controlled advancement of the country, which has controlled everything in our country. Even though there were few failures during the time of emergency, but we coped very well with that. We showed the world how India can be the democratic hub of the world. And also during this election, when there were many criticisms going on on the current government, there were many allegations towards them as they are rigging the elections. For example, they have the dictator tendencies, which were very much unfortunate. But there were discussions going on. But this election, which was held recently in our country, it showed the world that India is still the democratic hub for the world. It shows how democracy is respected in our country. What do the people in our country want? It showed that the result of elections itself shows that the people's mind setup is different and what they really want. Similarly, if we look at the Pakistan's condition, Pakistan was very hot table since its beginning. In 1948, they went for a war with India, and they lost that war. And when they lost that war, they directly blamed the military, directly blamed the civilian government. Whenever anything wrong happens, it is done by the civilian government, and whenever anything good happens to that country, it is done by the military there. So there is completely, civilian governments, they act as a puppets in the hands of the establishment. Even if we look at what the governments had gone through there is a record that no government has completed this full term in Pakistan. So always the governments, they have to act as the puppets of the establishment, otherwise they will face the consequences. And if we look at the consequences, we have the greater example of the Imran Khan there, how he went against the establishment and his government was toppled within few months. So this is the tendency, this is the government's tendency there. But we also saw one thing interesting there. When there were recent elections, when Imran Khan's party was not allowed to participate in the elections, we saw that the members of the Imran Khan's party, they participated in the elections as the independent members. But still, one thing was there evident from the people living in there, that they want democracy to prevail there. They don't want the establishment's role there. So we saw from the elections, we saw from the results of the election, it was the Imran Khan's party who was winning, irrespective of they were not allowed to participate as a whole unit. So the point of the discussion here is, there, even though there are some dictator things happening in the South Asia, but the people, they have the different mind setup. They want the democracy to prevail. Similarly, if we will take the case of the Bangladesh, even though there is turmoil right now, even though the government which is going to come there, that is anti-India, but we can appreciate one thing about that country, that they went against the dictator tendencies of Sheikh Hasina. They threw her out, and they wanted the elections should be very much neutral, and they want they want the government there which are elected by the people. So they really want democracy to prevail there. So here, we had discussed it with respect to South Asia. I hope you had understood the crux of this article. Now let's see what can be the question framed for you in the prelims. In context of this article, it is typical means based question. A typical means based question can be asked from this article itself, but as my motive is to connect you with the prelims also, so a question can be asked with respect to the democracy here. Even though such questions are already asked in our exams, but let's see how UPSC can frame a question from this article with respect to the prelims. Let's have a look at. Here the question says, which of the following are key features of a democratic system? First, rule of law. Is it the key feature of the democratic system? Second, separation of powers. Is it the feature of the democratic system? 3, universal adult franchise. Is it the feature of the democratic system? Fourth, absence of political parties. If you have the basic knowledge about this, about the democracy, you would definitely mark this question correctly. It is definitely the option 1, which is option A, which is 1, 2, and 3. Absence of political parties is never a feature of the democratic system. So it is not the feature of the democratic system. In democratic system, everybody, if we will go little deep into the democracy, then it will take at least 2 to 3 hours to discuss the democracy, to discuss the definition of the democracy itself. So in nutshell, with respect to this question, what are the key features of the democracy? There prevails the rule of law, there is the separation of powers so that they check each other, and also there is universal adult franchise. It is the key feature of the democratic system. And what is not the key feature? The absence of political parties. It is not the key feature. Even though political parties is not something which the democracy itself in its definition explains about, but right now the trends of the democracy has changed. So political parties had become one of the feature of the democracy. So in this question, the correct answer would be option A, which is 1, 2, and 3 only. With this, let's move to the another article which was in the news today. It is about the war and peace. It is about the India's role as a mediator. Right now we are living in the world where we face the challenge of another world war. We see the conditions all around in the Middle East, in the Europe. The countries are fighting with each other. They are fighting for the power. They are, subjugating each other. The powerful country is subjugating the least powerful. We are seeing the wars going on in different countries in the world, right? For example, in the Middle East, we are seeing the war between Gaza and Israel, the war between Palestine and Israel. We are seeing the long-lasting war between Russia and Ukraine. So this article is with respect to the Russia and Ukraine, how India can play its role as a mediator with this. India's, countries, the West has always asked India to specify their role. why they asked this question to India? Because India's relationship with the Russia. We had been very good friends since eternity. We had been very good friends since history. Russia has always supported us. They had supported us in our nuclear program. They had supported them when it was USSR. They had supported us. When it is Russia, they had supported us. We had huge trade in defense. They had developed many power projects in our country. So there is dependence of India on Russia, and also right now we are importing huge amount of oil from Russia. So that is the reason the West is asking our stance. What is our stance with respect to this? But here we have to understand that India's stance has always been we are not aligned towards any country. We don't align with any country. We believe in multilateralism rather than tilting towards one country. We believe in having friendly relationship with everyone rather than having friendly relationship with certain bloc. This has been our approach since history. Our approach is, as the PM said, that we believe in peace rather than war. We always stand with the peace. So this has been our approach. But still, when such conditions arise, when there is a war between wrong and right, at that time we can't have this approach. We have to take this stance. So with this stance, with this discussion here in this year itself, there were few developments with respect to our foreign policy. As after the elections, when the PM Narendra Modi he was re-elected, his first visit to Russia, it showed the world the importance of Russia. Then his visit to Ukraine, it showed India's stance towards this war, how Ukraine is important for India too, what India's approach is. As PM said, that we stand with the peace, and our country, it showed to the world that we have that capability, that we can talk with any player in the world. We can talk whether how much extreme they could be. And also in very near future we are going to UN. That would be very landmark event in our history also. And after that, India has to visit the BRICS again. So there are various developments which are very soon to happen. So it definitely shows that India's role in the war and peace, how India can mediate between the countries, because its ability to talk with every country, because the way India has established its relations with every player in the world. So this is crux about this article. This is how India plays its role, how India should play its role. Now with this, let us see what can be the question asked in the prelims with respect to your preparation from this article itself. Here, the purpose, even though I would like to say one thing here, a direct question cannot be asked directly from this topic, but the purpose is that it will help you revise, it will help you get more connected to the article itself, and it will help you gain some more information. The question here is, which of the following statements accurately reflect India's role in the Russia-Ukraine conflict? So a question may be asked, such question may be in fact be asked in the mains, but let's discuss some points here. What has been the India's role in the context of Russia-Ukraine war? Here the first statement: India has formally mediated peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. It has not happened yet. India has not formally mediated it yet, so this is incorrect. Second, India has maintained a neutral stance and advocated for dialogue and diplomacy through international forums. 100% correct. This is the correct definition of this question. Third, India has imposed economic sanctions on Russia. No, we are not in a condition to impose economic sanctions on Russia, so this is totally incorrect. Fourth, India has provided military assistance to Ukraine in support of its defense against Russia. This is also incorrect. So for this question, the correct statement would be statement 2, which is from the code given below. The option B, which is 2 only, is the correct answer for this question. So with this, I hope you had understood the crux of the article, and I hope by this question it helped you to get connected with your preparation. Now let's towards another article. It talks about the sharpening India's anti-tuberculosis fight. Tuberculosis is one of the greatest threat in our country. It is said that 27% of the global tuberculosis cases arise from India itself. It has huge impact on our economy. It has huge impact on the health of the people, and many people die because of the tuberculosis. What is the main cause of this spread of tuberculosis? We have to understand it in a different way. If I will bring you back to 2019, 2021, then you will understand this concept more properly. When there was COVID-19 rising, and there we understood, everybody understood two things: symptomatic patient and asymptomatic patient, those whose symptoms were very much clear and those whose symptoms were not that clear. And it was believed that asymptomatic patients are more dangerous to the world at that time, during that time. So same is the case with the tuberculosis. It also leads to two different types of patients: symptomatic and asymptomatic. And in the asymptomatic patients, there is one thing, what happens when a patient is diagnosed with the tuber. He experiences the symptoms. What he does, he takes the medicine. They have to take lots of medicines with respect to the TB. They take the medicine, and after a few weeks they start, their health becomes good. Those symptoms are no more visible in their body. So what they do, they stop using the medicine. But unfortunately, there is one thing: the bacteria is still in their body, and it becomes very much resistant to the medicines they had taken. And this bacteria which is in their body will spread to other people, and as they become the latent to the symptoms, these bacteria spread to other people, and there is huge spread of tuberculosis in the country, and which leads to the death of the people. There are other ways also. Now the question arises: what can we do here? How can India tackle with this situation? One condition in our country is that the social stigma related to any disease. For example, if any, usually such diseases, they occur in lower income classes. Unfortunately, they occur to the poor people mainly, because of the conditions they are living in, the slums they are living in. They have to work for the daily wages, and when they develop such disease, and when they are noted that they have this disease, they try to hide it out. Why they try to hide it out? Because if they will confess their disease to the people, they won't be allowed to work, because it is very much, it transmits very quickly. So they hide it from the people, and that is also one of the reasons: the economic loss, the fear of the economic loss for those patients. They hide it, and because of that, these diseases get spread to the various people, and it leads to the damage in the country. And also, the long drug regime, it is one of the issue with this. They have to take the huge number of drugs, and usually people don't like to take that amount of drugs. Because of that, they also like to hide it from the people. So there are many ways by which this disease is spreading in our country, and WHO has brought up few new norms to deal with these antimicrobes, to deal with these, to deal with the micro-resistant tuberculosis. They had brought out, B-Pearl medicine, new better compliance of these medicine, in which a lower amount of medicine would be taken, lower amount of drugs would be taken. India is also going for that. So with this, India is trying to accomplish its goal to get tuber free very soon. So with this, I think this is enough about the topic. Now let's see what can be the question, asked from this article. Let's have a look at that. Here the question says, which of the following statements regarding drug-resistant tuberculosis in India are correct? The first statement: drug-resistant tuberculosis includes both multi-drug resistant TB and extensively drug-resistant TB. 100% correct. Nothing wrong with it. In fact, if you remember, we had already discussed this topic in a huge detail, in which we also discussed the National Tuberculosis Elimination Program too. So I hope if you are watching this, please do watch my older videos also, so that it will help you connect well with the current affairs and also help you prepare well for this. So here the first statement: drug resistant TB includes both multi-drug resistant TB and extensively drug resistant TB. 100% correct. Second, India has the highest number of cases of drug resistant TB globally. 100% correct. Third, drug resistant TB is primarily caused by non-compliance with the standard TB treatment regimen. Also correct. Fourth, the National TB Elimination Program in India does not provide treatment options for drug-resistant TB. This is totally absurd and incorrect. They do provide for the treatment options for the treatment of drug-resistant TB. National Tuberculosis Program in India, it does provide treatment options for drug-resistant TB. So in this question, the correct statements are statement 1, statement 2, and statement 3. And from the code given below, the correct option is option C, which is 1, 2, and the 3 only. So with this, I hope you had understood the topic and you were able to connect with the current affairs also. Now let us have a look at the next topic, which is in the news, which is establishing a carbon market. You know, in our country, we are very much carbon dependent. We are very much dependent on fossil fuels. We have steel, iron industries. We have different industries which need fossil fuels. Because of those industries, we emit huge amount of carbon. And also with this respect, we had set up the goal to reduce the carbon, to become the carbon neutral by 2070. So in reaching to that goal, we have to go through the reduction of these carbon, to reduction of the emission of the carbons. We have to go for alternate methods of energy generation. It is in our program. We have to go for the renewable energy. So here the topic is not about the carbon emissions in India. The topic is about the carbon market. Here we have to understand what this carbon market is. With this concept of the carbon market, we had in our country in 2012, we brought up national mission for enhanced energy efficiency. In this, we brought up a program called PAT, which is named as Perform, Achieve, and Trade. In this, what we do in this Perform, Achieve, and Trade, what we do, we incentivize the the industries, so that they will achieve there are some set of targets set up. They have to achieve that. They have to reduce the because of the lust for those incentives. They will be given incentives if they will achieve the target. If they reduce the carbon emissions, for that they will achieve the target. So the purpose of this Perform, Achieve, and Target is to reduce the carbon emissions, to incentivize the industries. With this, we had also another thing which is called as cap and trade. In this, a certain cap is put on the carbon emissions. For example, if two companies are competing and one is way below its cap and another is producing above its cap, so what does it do? It will go to the another company and trade with them, so that they will achieve this carbon neutrality. They will achieve this trade. The cap, how much emission a company can go for. If a company goes more than that, then there would be another company which goes below than that. They will trade with each other, and this is about the cap and trade. Then another important thing which is in the which was also given in the Kyoto Protocol, it is about the clean development mechanism. In it, what happens, it is very much similar to it is in a way similar to cap and trade, but different. For example, two countries are here. For example, a developed country like Germany and a developing country like India. In a Kyoto Protocol, we don't have any targets set. So what we will do, we will go for the emissions. And for the developed country, there are certain targets they have set up for the developed countries. For example, if Germany goes beyond its target, what they have to do, they will how much they had gone beyond their targets, how much emissions they had done, what would be the cost for that, what would be the cost for that extra emissions. What they will do, they will invest that much money in India in carbon neutral companies, in carbon neutral industries, so that it will help in reducing the carbon emission in a different way, in a very developmental way. So these were about this was about the carbon market. This was about the article itself. I hope you had understood it. Here we discussed three important concepts: performance, achieve, and trade, cap and trade, and clean development mechanism. So with this, let's see how UPSC can form a question with respect to this topic. Let's have a look at that. Here the question says, which of the following statements about the Kyoto Protocol and the carbon market are correct? First, the Kyoto Protocol established a global carbon market through mechanisms such as emission trading and the clean development mechanism. 100% correct. Second, the Kyoto Protocol mandates that all participating countries reduce their carbon emission by a fixed percentage. No, there is no fixed percentage for all parties, even though there are percentage set up for the developed countries, but not for the developing countries. And also one more thing, the targets which are set up for the developed countries, that is also flexible. As its explanation is given here, the protocol does not mandate that all participating countries reduce their emission by a fixed percentage. Instead, it sets specific reduction targets for developed countries while allowing flexibility in how these targets are met. So statement 2 is incorrect. coming to the statement 3, it says the carbon market under the Kyoto Protocol allows country to trade emission reduction credits to meet their targets. 100% correct. Statement 4, the Kyoto Protocol applies only to developed countries and developing countries are exempt from emission reduction commitments. It applies, even though it is totally incorrect. The Kyoto Protocol applies to developed countries with the binding targets, while developing countries were not required to commit to mandatory emission reductions under the first commitment period. So, developing countries are also included in it. So, in this statement, the correct options are option 1 and option 3 only. So, with this, let's move to the another article which is in the. It is about the India-Russia signed working plan to handle emergencies. It is the little new development with respect to our relationship. What it deals with. It deals with the natural disasters. What are the ways to deal with the natural disasters? The use of space technology, training of people, and sharing of best practices between the countries. By this, these natural emergencies can be handled. So this is a small article, small update in the newspaper. Now let's have a look how UPSC can frame a question from this article itself. Let's have a look at. It says, which of the following methods are commonly used to handle disaster emergencies? Early warning system, 100% correct. Disaster risk reduction plans, correct. Post-disaster recovery programs, correct. And all of the above. In fact, the correct option for this question is option D, which is all of the above. Now with this, let's move to the another article. It says transmission of Chandipora virus. We had discussed this 50 times at least from last 2 months. So there is no need to discuss it more. Because of this Chandipora virus, we should know that it leads to the brain encephalitis. It is mostly spread by the sandflies, and the most impacted ones under this virus are the children which are below age 15. And we should know that it belongs to the vesiculovirus gene of Rhabdoviridae. We had discussed it many times. Even in our daily quiz, we had discussed it. We had taken many questions from this. Now, here also we had taken a question on the Chandipora virus. Let's discuss that. It is very straightforward question. The question says, which of the following statements about the Chandipora virus are correct? First, Chandipora virus is transmitted by ticks and sandflies rather than mosquitoes. 100% correct. Even though the transmission of Chandipora virus via mosquitoes has seen in labs, but in real life it has not been found yet. So this statement is correct. Statement 2, the virus was first identified in the 1960s in India. 100% correct. Statement 3, Chandipora virus is known to cause an outbreak of febrile illness and encephalitis. 100% correct. Statement 4, the virus has been successfully eradicated from endemic regions. Totally incorrect. So for this question, the correct statements are statement 1, statement 2, and statement 3. And one more thing we should know about that, there are not specific drugs with the Chandipora virus. We treat the symptoms in this disease. If it is early detected, then it is very good. That patient can be treated. If the detection is very late, then it has huge mortality rates. With this, let's move to the another article which was in the news. It is about the Great Nicobar project. Some of the complications in this project, as there are some environmental concerns, as according to the author, the ministry has ignored some of the environmental concerns with the Great Nicobar project. In this about the Great Nicobar project, we should know that in this project there would be development of various sensitive projects like development of power plants, international airports which would be used for the military purpose, also international container shippings. The purpose of this project is to contain the China in this region. Basically, if unofficially we look at it, the purpose is to contain the China, because we had seen China working in this region. So purpose is to contain China there. So that is the reason these international airports are developed there, international container shipping is developed there, power plants are developed there. But unfortunately, there are some environmental clearances which has not been achieved yet, and also there is huge biodiversity hotspot, and that biodiversity hotspot comes under the Sunda land biodiversity hotspot. And it is said that because of these projects there would be damage in these biodiversity hotspots, especially the Galathian National Park. So this is about, in this is nutshell about this project. Now let's have a look how the UPSC can ask you a question. You know, this great Nicobar project, it is very much relevant for your mains exam, so please go through it. And if you want me to take a separate class on it, I will definitely provide the information about it. So please write in the comments. And now let's see what can be the question asked from this article. Here the question says, which of the following statements about the Galathea National Park are correct? The first statement, Galathea National Park is located in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, 100% correct. To be more precise, it is located in the Nicobar Islands. Second statement, the park is known for its significant population of the dugong, a marine mammal, 100% correct. Third statement, it was established primarily to protect the tropical rainforest ecosystem, totally incorrect. The park is primarily established to protect marine and coastal ecosystem and the dugong population rather than tropical rainforests. Statement 4, the park is renowned for its diverse range of bird species and is a popular bird watching destination. You know, it is definitely a bird, there is definitely, you know, huge amount of bird population, but it's not renowned for it. It is actually renowned for the dugong, a marine mammal population. So statement 4 is also incorrect. So with this, the correct question, with this question, the correct statements are statement 1 and statement 2 only. And from the code given below, the correct code would be option A. With this, we had completed our daily discussion with the current affairs. Now let's have a look at the static topic which we have to discuss today. In the today's topic of from Indian polity, we have to discuss the Indian Councils Act of 1861. You know, we had why we are discussing these modern history topics here. It is very much important for you to understand the Indian polity. You know, you have to understand the trends, how earlier we were very much decentralized, how East India Company tried to recentralize, went for the centralization, and what was the impact of the centralization, how they were not able to connect with the local population, how there were huge revolts coming out from our country, and because of those revolts, how the British government realized that it is very much important to connect with the people, how they started to go for this decentralization again, how they led to the formation of the legislative councils, how the executive became responsible to the legislative council. So this is the history which we have to understand before understanding our polity itself. So today the topic is about Indian Councils Act of 1861. You know, we understood one thing from the revolt of 1857, that there was least connection between the British and the common people in our country. You know, there was least connection. There was huge centralization happening. You know, the government was not able to connect with the people. There was huge language gap. There was huge understanding. You know, there least amount of people, least Indians were involved in the government, in the high class government jobs. You know, so there were many different issues with the government then. So they had understood it, and they realized one thing, that if they want to rule India for next 100 years, they have to go through some changes, and the Indian Councils Act of 1861 was the beginning of that change. You know, it is the important landmark in the constitutional and political history of India. About the key features of the Indian Councils Act of 1861, let's discuss them one by one. First, it provided that the Viceroy should nominate some Indians as non-official members of his council. You know, it led the entry of Indian of the local Indians into the legislative council. So it was officially it was the non-official members for his council. So it led the interaction between the India and the government. So there were some Indian officials in the government. So it gave the hope to the Indians that they can also. It was the starting point that Indians try to understand that they can also, you know, govern our country. They can also govern the country by the modern means. So it was the first step towards that. The Viceroy could nominate some Indians as non-official members of his council, and with this, the Raja of Banaras, the Maharaja of Patiala, and Sir Dinkar Rao, they became the first members who were included as the non-official members of his council. So, you know, UPSC can directly ask you a question here about these three. Raja of Banaras, they will ask you a question like this: Raja of Banaras, the Maharaja of Patiala, and Sir Dinkar Rao, are associated with what, they have what significance in our modern history. So such questions can directly ask. UPSC has the tendency, and they had even asked such questions directly in the previous year questions. So please try to remember every point which we discuss here. The aim of this discussion is not just to revise you the article, but also help you remember the most important points which can be asked in the exam. As an aspirant, what we do, we will go through the major points in when we will read any book. We will go through the major points. We don't dig that deep. Why we fail? Because we don't dig that deep. What is the difference between the toppers and us? The toppers read and understand every line in their book. That is the only difference. They also, the toppers and we people, toppers, those who top the examination, and what is the difference between them and us? Even though we have the same material, they are reading the same books which we are reading, but why do they pass? Why do they top the examination, and why we are not even able to crack the prelims? What is the difference? The difference lies here. The toppers, their tendencies are different, their habit is different. That is what you have to develop. You have to read the every line which is in your book. Try to understand that. Try to see the significance of that line. Basically, when average person will read this line, he will just ignore this point: Raja Banaras, the Maharaja Patiala, and the Sir Dinkar Rao. He will least consider about it. But the toppers, who has the tendency to remember, they will definitely note these points out and remember these things. So coming back to our discussion, these are the important points which we should know. We should remember everything which is in the book. We should try to remember everything, at least understand everything which is in the book, because UPSC does not go that far. We don't have to search for different sources. Even though you have the only if you have the single content available to you. For example, you have a single book. For example, you have Lakshmikant. Even though you will read that book properly, you will understand that book properly, you will 100% qualify for the exams. But unfortunately, we are not ready to do so. So here is the initiative for you guys. We take up every important thing which is necessary for you. Please do stay with us. It is not, sometimes it may feel that we are not showing, we are not that much, we are very much different from other institutions, but the information given here is very much important for you. I request you guys, please do write these things and always try to revise them, and when your exams would be near, it will definitely help you in cracking your exam. So coming back to our topic, the first thing what this Council Act of 1861 did, it provided that the Viceroy should nominate some Indians as non-official members of his council. Second, Raja Banaras, the Maharaja of Patiala, and Sir Dinkar Rao, they were first such official members, non-official members of the council. Second thing what it did, it restored the legislative powers to the presidencies of Bombay and Madras. One thing the British government understood, that when they started from decentralization to centralization, they understood one thing, that was a failure. They were not able to connect with the people, and it was one of the reasons there was huge revolt in our country. So they understood it, and it restored the legislative powers to the presidencies of Bombay and Madras. And what else it did? It also provided for the establishment of new legislative councils for Bengal, northwestern provinces, and Punjab. So it also provided for the establishment of new legislative councils for Bengal, northwestern provinces, and Punjab also. And also one thing, it empowered the viceroy to issue ordinances, without the concurrence of the legislative council during an emergency. For example, there is any emergency, there is any war, and the legislative council is not there, so the viceroy could himself issue the ordinance, and the life of such ordinance was 6 months. About the ordinances we will discuss when we will take the basic and the real polity. After a few days we will start discussing the from Article 1 itself. We will discuss about the ordinances, what is the difference between ordinance and the law. We will discuss about everything about it. So I hope you had understood the Indian Councils Act of 1861. Let's try to recap it, what we discussed in it. The first thing which we discussed in it, it provided for the non-official members. It provided that the viceroy should nominate some Indians as non-official members of his council, and in that Raja Banaras, the Maharaja of Patiala and Sir Dinkar Rao becomes very much important. And also it restored the legislative powers to the presidencies of Bombay and Madras, which were fully eradicated in the Charter Act of 1833. And also what it did, it also provided for the establishment of new legislative councils for Bengal, Northwestern Province and Punjab. And also it empowered the viceroy to issue ordinances without the concurrence of the legislative council. During an emergency, the life of such an ordinance was 6 months. So with this, let us see how UPSC can ask you a question from this article. Here the first question, here the question says, which of the following provisions were introduced by the Indian Councils Act of 1861? The first, expansion of the Executive Council of the Viceroy to include Indian members, 100% correct. This is what we discussed. Second, creation of a legislative council in each province with legislative powers. So this becomes very much extreme, and with legislative powers, some powers were given not fully. So this is incorrect. Statement 3, introduction, even though the legislative councils were introduced, but full legislative powers were not given to them. Statement 3, introduction of separate electoral rules for different communities, totally incorrect. Statement 4, provision for the establishment of a central legislative council to advise the British government on Indian affairs, 100% correct. So for this question, the correct statement is statement 1 and statement 4 only. So with this, even though we can say that the creation of a legislative council in each province with legislative powers, even at that time the legislative councils were given to some provinces but not to every province. So this is half correct and half incorrect. I think the correct answer for this question is option 1 and option 4. Option 1 and option 4, yeah, option 1 and option 4. From the code given below, the correct option is option B. About this question, we will have again look on that. If you are not satisfied, even I'm personally not that much satisfied with this question, but I think the correct option would be option 1 and 4. If you have some doubts, please do share in the comments. So now let's move to the another article, the last portion of our discussion, which is discussing the previous year questions. For the last part of our discussion, it is the previous year questions. The first question here says, who among the following Europeans were the last to come to pre-independence India as trader? Was it Portuguese, French, English or Dutch? It was definitely the French who came at the last. The earliest to visit India was Portuguese, then Dutch and English, then English and Dutch. And the French, they came they came at the end, actually in they came in 1669, way from very far from when British came. They were the last to visit India. Now moving to the second question, it says, which of the following was the first fort constructed by the British in India? Which of the following was the first fort constructed by the British in India? Was it Fort Williams? About Fort Williams, we should know that it was constructed in Calcutta in 1781. About Fort St. George, it was constructed in Chennai in 1644. About Fort St. David, it was constructed in 1670. And about Fort St. Angelo, it was constructed way before by Portuguese. But here we are talking about with the context of the British. So Fort St. Angelo gets cancelled here. Now we are left with the option 1, A, C and B. So the correct option is option B, which is Fort St. George. It was constructed in 1644 in Chennai. It was the first fort constructed by the British in India. Now coming to the last question of today's discussion, it talks about who among the following wrote the book Bahu Vivah, which means the multiple vivah. It was against polygamy. Was he Raja Ram Mohan Roy? No. Was he Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar? Let us keep him here. Was he Pandita Rambai? No. Was he Rabindranath Tagore? No. So the correct option for this question is option B, which is Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. So with this, I hope we had completed our discussion. Please do write in the comments what are the further initiatives which we should bring in with respect to this, with respect to your preparation. Please write in the comments and share it with your friends, and please do subscribe the channel. Thank you for staying with me. Thank you very much.